Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers, and in this video we've got our full multi-tester review of the ASICS Novablast 4. Now if you're looking for a daily trainer that screams big cushion comfort, then the ASICS Novablast 4 might well be the shoe for you. This maxed cushion Marlita goes all in on big stat plushness. ASICS says the latest generation is still built to cope with everything from easy recovery miles up to up-tempo efforts, but there are some significant updates to the midsole, the uppers and the ride here. So is the new Novablast an improvement on the old? Watch on to find out. Quick details then. Well, the Novablast 4 puts a sizable wedge of midsole underfoot with 41.5 mils in the heel and 33.5 mils in the forefoot for an 8 mil drop overall. It tips the scales at 9.4 ounces or 267 grams in my UK test size 8.5. That's marginally heavier than its predecessor, but still quite light when you consider just how much midsole there is on this shoe. At launch, the ASICS Novablast 4 was £135 or $140. That's the same as the Novablast 3, so no cheeky price hikes here, and that's a fairly middling price in the daily trainer bracket. To give you a quick shoe whip round, well, initially it doesn't seem like there's much has changed here on the Novablast 4, but there are some really important tweaks. The 4 remains a giant shoe with quite a unique geometric midsole and a jutting heel here, but it now uses a new Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco midsole foam that features a small percentage of recycled materials in there. The midsole geometry has changed too. There's a much more pronounced midsole rocker in a bid to create smoother and snappier heel to toe transitions. The forefoot and heel now flare out wider, creating a more reliable and stable platform to run off. There's new engineered woven uppers that ASICS says will offer more stretch and ventilation and durability. They are softer and smoother than the uppers on the Novablast 3, but there's not that much more stretch, I don't think, when I put them side to side. Another interesting tweak here, the Novablast 4's sidewalls rise up higher on the foot for more security. The toe box also sweeps up following the kind of rocker shape, and that creates noticeably more room between the uppers and the top of your toes, which is a positive change for anyone looking to run long miles in these shoes. The tongue now has a thin neoprene-like wings that wrap the foot nicely, takes the edge off any potential lace pinch. Flip the Novablast 4 over and there is a big generous covering of AHA rubber to provide the grip and durability. The Novablast 4 also now carries a CO2 label on the inside, which puts the CO2 cost of the shoe at 11.2 kilograms. That's quite significantly higher than the Allbirds Tree Flyer, which comes in at 7.21 kilograms though.
Fit for me in the Novablast 4, I would say stick to your size in this shoe. I'm a size 8, this is a size 8. It is probably a little bit longer than your average running shoe, but I did find that the space in the forefoot between my big toe and the front of the shoe was okay. It wasn't way too far. I found it very comfortable. The upper is quite plush, but you can get a really nice lockdown fit in it with it as well. So I would definitely stick to my size in this shoe. Found it very comfortable.
So for the Novablast 4, in testing I ran in my regular running shoes, which is a UK size 8.5, and I found the fit secure but roomy with decent wiggle room in the toe box. There's good hold across the midfoot, a largely secure heel, and unless you like your shoes very snug and think about going half a size down, I'd recommend going true to size in these shoes.
I found with the ASICS Gel Nimbus 25, it came up a little bit short in the foot and I wished I'd sized up a little bit. I'm normally a UK 5 in pretty much all running shoe brands, apart from New Balance when I size up to 5.5. But I found with ASICS I'm normally a 5, but with the Gel Nimbus 25 I wish I didn't really. I just wanted like a tiny bit more room in the toe box, especially because I was using that shoe for a lot of my long runs when I was marathon training. Didn't feel the same with the Novablast, felt like it was really true to size. This is a UK 5 and it fit really well. Again, like I didn't feel like I needed more room in the toe box, didn't feel like my toenails were kind of touching the end. And yeah, super comfortable. Really like the new upper and the tongue. Found it really easy to get like a good locked in feel when wearing this shoe.
Now before we get into the run test fully, I need to come clean. I've never really enjoyed the Novablast, and while some runners have reported a cushioned but energetic ride, I've always found them a little bit bulky and burdensome, and the soft midsole has always been a bit sinky and sapping for me. So I wasn't really that hopeful that I'd like this latest generation, either because they look quite similar overall. Now maybe my tastes have changed with age and some slowing down perhaps, Or maybe ASICS has tweaked the ride here to make this 4th generation of the Novablast a bit more responsive. But overall, I think that's something that's improved on this shoe based against past generations. In testing, I've run close to 40 test miles at mixed paces from slow pods to marathon pace. I've also done a mile with one Novablast 3 and one Novablast 4 on each foot to see how those two shoes compare. Now, fans of the pillowy cushion will still get what they need here. The soft sink hasn't gone completely, but I find the midsole is now tuned to be slightly firmer and more responsive. The more aggressive rocker creates a better rolling efficiency. I think there's much less sink now and more of a rockered, responsive, immediate ride. It's still obviously a very, very cushioned shoe, and it's still very much a Novablast in its DNA. That easy day comfort and security is still there by the bucket load. But if you want to crank up the pace, I find that these Novablast 4 now respond a shade faster than previous Novablasts, and that boosts their overall versatility as a daily trainer. On some test run, I still found them a bit soggy and sluggish, particularly on tired legs. I occasionally felt like I was working against that midsole still. And even though they're relatively light by comparison to some other sort of max cushion running shoes, I'm still not in love with how kind of broad and bulky they feel overall on the foot. Like previous Novablast models, there's a lot going on here. They're quite big and wide and long, and they can still feel like you're strapping on a couple of canoes. There is a benefit to that wider base of midsole foam though. It cradles the foot and creates a more stable ride overall. But if you don't like maximalist shoes that feel big on the foot, you'll probably want to give these a miss.
I've never really been a fan of the Novablast. I've always loved them for the first kind of mile, 2 miles, but then I found them really unstable underfoot. They've always been kind of wildly bouncy, but with that came a little bit of instability. And I think because I'm the kind of runner that tends to overpronate when I get tired, my ankles definitely roll in a bit. I found that it wasn't enough stability underfoot for me to wear the Novablast. That said, I know that it's a super popular kind of everyday running shoe that you can wear for faster miles. So I was excited to hear about the Novablast 4. They've definitely changed the midsole foam, and I was excited to see what that felt like underfoot. Obviously, I'm not running very fast at the moment because I'm pregnant, but I have used this shoe for easy runs and a little bit of faster stuff, but you know, that's all relative. Not as fast, anywhere near as fast as any of the other run testers in this review. I found that there was, for me, a good level of bounce in this shoe. It was definitely comfortable enough to wear on long runs, but I found it had enough bounce underfoot for faster sessions, and I really enjoyed running in this shoe. That said, I do think it feels a lot firmer and a lot more stable than previous versions, and I wonder if you're a big fan of the shoe, whether it's lost some of its excitement and some of its bounce. If you didn't find the old versions unstable, will this now kind of fall into that slightly bouncy but a little bit boring category? I don't know, but personally I loved it. Midsole foam is FF Blast Plus Eco. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? And I'd say it's not as squishy, and you don't get that same sinking comfort that you get with something like the ASICS Gel Nimbus 25. It's definitely firmer than the Gel Nimbus 25. So if you've tried the Gel Nimbus and you want something a little bit faster, this definitely feels firmer underfoot, but I think it gives the shoe some more kind of versatility. With the Gel Nimbus, it's so comfy, it's so plush, and it's exactly what you want for long runs, long training miles, marathons. But this, with the firmer midsole, I think gives you a little bit more versatility, a little bit more bounce when you try and run a bit faster in the shoe.
So I've done about 50k in this shoe so far, and it's an exciting one. The Novablast has had an interesting history. The first version of the Novablast I absolutely loved. It came out of nowhere. I liked the softness of it. I liked that it had a nice bit of bounce in it. Just did so much training in that shoe and really enjoyed it. It was just a fantastic, really well-priced shoe that did a lot. The Novablast 2 and 3 didn't like so much. They lost some of the fun of the original Novablast. They had lost some of the bounce. They were not as soft. They were more stable, but by doing so, they'd sort of lost any enjoyment from that shoe. And because of that, I ended up using other shoes for the sorts of runs that I would use the original Novablast for, because I tended to use the Novablast 1 for shoes where I wanted to go out and just have fun and tick off some miles. It was great for doing tempo efforts. Nice versatile shoe, but you could also use it for easy runs as well because it's really soft and comfortable and bouncy. The Novablast 4, thankfully, has developed to become a bit more like the Novablast 1, but in a different way. So the midsole foam is FF Blast Plus, but it does feel very different than what I've experienced from the previous versions. It's a slightly different design in this midsole foam because it has this new eco material in it. So what I found about this shoe now is that midsole foam is a bit more responsive, feels a little bit bouncier, just feels a little bit faster as well. When you're running a nice consistent race, the turnover just feels great in this shoe. It's a little bit more like the Superblast, which is a fantastic shoe for long runs, for consistent pace, for tempo efforts, that sort of thing. This is very similar to that now. Novablast 3 was not like that. Novablast 3 was a bit dull, bit of a workhorse, bit of a Pegasus. Whereas this just feels like it's a bit livelier. Just you can pick up a nice pace in this, and it just feels like the geometry of the shoe is really helping you run consistently. I've done track in this shoe as well, and I found it to be pretty good. It's not a speed shoe by any stretch of the imagination, but it was fine. I could pick up the pace nicely in this shoe. I would never have even tried to use the Novablast 3 for faster efforts, just because it was very, very dull and didn't really do a lot. Whereas this on track, it just felt pretty good. It's definitely not as fast as some of my race shoes or my faster carbon plate shoes, but it does feel like a versatile shoe now. And if you're the sort of runner that wants one pair of shoes, this is a great option now, because you could probably use this for anything from your easy runs all the way up to race day. Probably be a nice shoe if you wanted to cross the finish line of a marathon comfortably, but have a little bit of speed in it as well. Not in comparison with carbon plate shoes. I definitely still use those instead of this, but it is a contender now for more general runners that are looking for a solid all-rounder shoe that can pick up the pace or do those easier runs. And the other things I'd say about the shoe is the outsole is really good. Not any major differences in the outsole from previous versions. I don't know if there's going to be a TR version of this, which is the trail version that came out for the Novablast 3. That was basically created to add a little bit more traction in the midsole. I haven't really used this in very slippy conditions yet, and I know the Novablast 3 did have some problems with slippy conditions, which is why a lot of people went for the TR version. But I've not had any issues with this at all. I think the outsole is fine. It feels quite durable and didn't have any slippage when I was in it. Other than that, solid round of testing, and it's the Novablast 4 has now become a shoe that I would quite happily put into my rotation and use for all of my daily runs. It's definitely a shoe that I'll be using more. I didn't want to use the Novablast 2 or 3 more. I found that they fell to the bottom of my pile, whereas this is a shoe that now feels like it's worth contemplating as part of a rotation.
So my verdicts, I really love this shoe. I worry that if you're a huge fan of the Novablast 3 or the Novablast 2, you'll think it's almost been a bit too tamed with the Novablast 4. It's definitely not as bouncy, as exciting, but for me it works a lot better. It's a lot more stable, and it's what I would want underfoot. That said, I think it's still a great, if you've never tried the Novablast line before, this is still a great everyday training shoe that you can do. It has a lot more versatility. You can do faster sessions in it. Would you wear it on race day? I'm not sure, but it's a good versatile shoe that you can do a lot of miles in. A really, really soft daily trainer, go for the Nimbus 25 over this, because it does feel a little bit firmer underfoot, and I think it's the Nimbus is still a bit more stable, a bit more plush, and the kind of shoe you want on your foot for long runs. If you want something that's a little bit more exciting and that will give you the bounce underfoot to do faster sessions, this is a good pick.
Now, verdict then, if like me you're a fan of firmer ride, more responsive running shoes, then the Novablast 4 is a clear improvement on the past gen shoes. The midsole tweaks I think are a net positive, bringing some additional immediacy and response to each step in the shoe. As a result, I feel like this shoe now has much more versatility without sacrificing too much of that soft cushion protection that loads of runners enjoyed from the old Novablast. You're still going to get that here, but you will have to get on with oversized maximal shoes that offer a softer edge if you want to run in this shoe. If you do, you'll probably enjoy these. I still find them a little bit clomping, and I generally like shoes that are more compact and precise. So while I enjoyed these more than any previous Novablasts, I still prefer things a bit more stripped back For me, the new Saucony Ride 17 are a much better balanced shoe. That would be one that I'd pick over here, and they're for the same price as well. If you've got a bit more money to spend, I think you can get the same cushion benefits from alternatives like the Brooks Ghost Max or the On Cloud Eclipse, which I think also has a bit more top pace in it. And the New Balance 1080 V13 offers that cushioning, but without having to lace up such a big beast of a shoe.
So my verdict on the ASICS Novablast 4 is that it's a good improvement on the previous ones. Finally, Novablast has come back for me. I didn't like the 2 and the 3. I like the 4. I think it's versatile. I think it's comfortable. I think it's bouncy. I think it's responsive. I think it's a great, versatile daily shoe now. And I think it can tick a lot of boxes for a lot of runners, which is always what the Novablast has been designed to do. It's meant to be a versatile daily shoe that people can pick up as their one trainer. And I think it is that now. I think it's a really nice, solid, all-round training shoe that a lot of people will get on with, whether that's in a rotation or whether that's as your only shoe. I think the other thing to say about the Novablast 4 as well is that it's essentially a max cushion shoe, but it's a max cushion shoe that has a lot more to it. So where some shoes like the ASICS Gel Nimbus 25 is really just sits there on those comfortable, easy runs, those longer runs, this now can pick up the pace a bit more. It's a bit more versatile, despite the fact that it is essentially a max cushion shoe. So, yeah, really pleased with it. I think it's a good option now. And in comparison to some of the costs of other shoes out there, I think it's pretty well priced as well. So well worth a look if you're looking for a nice daily shoe.
So there you have it. That has been our review of the ASICS Novablast 4. We hope you found it useful. If you've run in this shoe, we'd love to hear how you found it. What were your thoughts? Did you like it? Like it better than the old one? Think they've changed it and made it worse? If you enjoyed the video and want more, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell. That's the best way to hear about new videos, and it's the best way to support us. If you're interested in how the Novablast 4 compares to other new daily trainers, there's a few videos popping up on the screen about now. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time to come watch the channel, and we hope to see you again soon on the Run Testers. Happy running, everyone.